So I wouldn't count this as a scandal or screen gate or whatever somebody's going to end up calling this. But I just thought it was an interesting thing to talk about. So in addition to asking you to subscribe, I'd like to tell you about today's video sponsor. Planters Cheese Balls. They're good. The canister is empty. There's some crumbs in there. But they are good. $2 and some change usually. I'm sure you can find it cheaper somewhere else. It's hard to find a good cheese product. You have your big companies that make them, and I feel like they really skimp on the amount of cheese dust they put on their balls or on their curls or on their little crunchies, whatever you want to call those. But Planters, I believe, has put the right amount of cheese dust on these balls, and they're delicious. Planters Cheese Balls. We're going to talk about refresh rates, which most people could not care less. And for a lot of things, they really don't matter. But as technology has gotten better, people just want better things, or I'll say perceivably better things. And I'll, I guess, expound upon that later. But, I'd say like a perfect example of, refresh rates not mattering is, right now I'm looking at a static image. So even though I'm moving, the screen itself isn't. And if this screen, and I can imagine that this screen is probably operating at either 30 or 60 hertz, whatever. So it's refreshing 30 times or 60 times a second. Excuse me. If I could get this down to a monitor of 1 hertz, would it conserve some power? Probably. But if this were a battery powered device, that would be even better. That, it's only refreshing 1 time a second as opposed to 30, 60, 120. Yeah, would do great things for battery life. But what we're going to talk about is, first we're going to listen to the Vergecast. I'm making a lot of videos about things that they say. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But then I have a couple tabs open, and I want to connect the screen to battery life. And I think I'll be able to do it. So first, let's listen to what these people at the Vergecast have to say.
David has written in bold letters. But first, David has a question.
David has a question.
David, what's your question?
So you two are display nerds. I would say I am not a display nerd. So I have a thing that I would like to present you with that surprised me greatly, and I would like you to react and tell me how to feel. So I bought a new iPhone. I bought a blue iPhone 16. I decided instead of going Pro, I was going to go regular. I would say in shocking numbers, both to me and to all of those other people, the overwhelming response from people is, how are you going to live without ProMotion? What's wrong with you? Do you not have eyes? How refresh rates? How do you survive? And if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I have not noticed. I could not tell you the difference in my phone experience between one and the other. But I am also not a display nerd. I have a 42-inch junky TCL TV behind me that will attest to that. So I bring to you, the display nerds, how big a deal is it that I lost ProMotion, and all the people who are worried about losing ProMotion on the iPhone, should they be worried?
If you're worried about losing ProMotion, then yeah, you should be worried because you care that much. But 90% of people aren't going to notice the difference. We see this all the time with refresh rate stuff. Like once you hit 30, most people aren't going to notice. But then some people are. Like Nilay will definitely notice. I can see him noticing right now and thinking like, no, Kranz is wrong.
I think Kranz is moving at too low of a refresh rate right now. IRL. Speed it up.
Yeah,
double
sorry. I just gotta, I don't know how to do a fast refresh rate.
My feeling on this is the things you can see, and the things you can't see, you can't. And that is just like pretty much that simple.
And I think he did sum it up right there perfectly. That the things you can see, you can, and the things that you can't, you can't. And yeah, for some people, refresh rates are important. I will say, I'll make the assumption that there are a lot of people who think they can see certain things and they actually can't. But yeah, there's a little more that he mentions, and I want to capture that as well.
And I think a lot of people are very sensitive to motion, like more than we suspect. So if you are the sort of person who can see tearing on a screen or the jelly effect, you're going to really see it. You're just going to see it. And a lot of people can't. The jelly effect is when the screen controller, the electronics that can controls the screen is on one side. And so that side refreshes a little bit faster than the right side. And you can see the thing just warp as you scroll.
And, the only time that I've even vaguely been exposed to that, not that I don't even think I saw it, but back when the last, or I'll say the current iPad mini was released, people were talking about the jelly effect, that people were slowly scrolling and you could see, and I don't say slow as if it was, millimeters at a time or whatever. But yeah, it was slow. And depending on what camera was capturing the scrolling, you could then see the little jelly effect where, one of it would kind of refresh before the other. So you'd scroll up and the left side would be higher than the right side, and then the right side would catch up, and that was pretty much it. But other than that, I honestly hadn't really paid too much attention to it. He did mention tearing, so hopefully he will mention it some more. And then if he doesn't, hopefully I'll remember to talk about tearing. But again, let's get back to it.
You scroll. I can see that every time. Every time. It's a curse. 99% of people, I don't think, can see it, and you shouldn't worry about it. And that's why most screens have that effect, because you can minimize it to the point where it doesn't bother most people.
So you're 100% confident that if I handed you two identical devices, one at 120 hertz and one at 60, you could immediately tell the difference?
I could. So promotion makes it hard, right? Because it's always changing.
Right.
So I don't know. I think on scroll, if I started scrolling them, I could. But if they're both playing videos, and the promotion one has fallen back to 24 and the other one is interpolating frames to get to 60. No. On a phone? No.
So I'm glad he mentioned it right there. And I think I'm going to stop at their video. I might play it and then cut it if I don't need any more of it. But one, he mentioned the Pro phone falling back to 24 when he's actually watching video. And then the non-Pro playing at 60 hertz, he might not see it. Personally, and again, this isn't, end all be all, and I don't know if I'd ever see it again, but when I was watching videos on my Galaxy S23, I think at the time, it had a variable refresh rate, the screen did. And yes, when I was watching video at 24 hertz, I saw the tearing. It was bad. It was really bad, during high speed scenes. I think I was watching the latest Ghostbusters movie at that time. And yeah, when things were flying around, you could see the screen tearing, and it's just like, oh, that looks terrible. So I think when I bumped it up, I think I could make it stay at 120. I forget, but I was watching the exact same movie on other devices right next to it, and the tearing was not present because the refresh rate was higher. So 24 hertz. I don't know if that's quite fast enough for some of these movies or videos that were shot at higher than 24 hertz. So that's that. The other thing, and I think I'm done with that. But let me finish listening, and if there's something else that I want to include, then I'll include it. But again, I think I'm done because he mentions what I have up here already open, and that's really just this YouTuber. And in fact, I think I'm done with those. This YouTuber who posted a video showing, hey, this iPhone 16 Pro is capped, or at least falls back to 80 hertz when scrolling, which I know I keep saying scrolling, and I'm in fact, let me hit on it now. I don't understand why that was the means of comparison, or the standard to which we cared about high refresh rates. Oh, if I'm scrolling and we know how fast we flick our fingers when we're scrolling and how quickly the content is flying on the page, why do we care how fast the screen is refreshing? Personally, and this goes back to my little S24 example or S23 example, that if I'm watching a high def movie that was shot in, I don't know, 120 hertz or some high some high format, some high frame rate, I'm going to want that high frame rate, when I'm not interacting with the phone. And that was the point of a video I made probably a year and a half ago, that why does the refresh rate change, or why is the change in refresh rate dependent on my interaction with the phone, not necessarily the content on the screen? So we do have some devices that you can just set at 120 and they just stay. And then we have these LTPO displays that are variable and, will change, not dependent on what's on the screen, but more so what what you as the user are doing with the device. So let's watch his little video real quick, and then we'll get back to it.
Some days ago, I did a video showcasing the iPhone 16 Pro Max versus the S24 Ultra and testing the refresh rate. The update I used is this one here. It's called CPU X Dasher. Of course, it's a free one, and yeah, you can just pay and remove the ads. And this is exactly what is shown in the video. So when you go to the floating bubble, there are some options you can choose from, and then this thing pops out. I did.
And one thing that I didn't mean to cut him off right there, but I think this is another part of the problem with the iPhone. And I guess I could say Apple in general, or Apple as a whole, is Apple says this is how things are going to be, and that's that. So they are telling us that, hey, this screen has a variable refresh rate, and you have to believe that it's an LTPO display, and it goes from this low number up to this high number. The high number being 120, the low number I would have assumed was lower than 60. And I think that also is a problem. Why is it stopping at 60 and not going down to 30 or to 24 or to 10 or to 1 or something lower than 60? I thought that was part of this whole purpose of, we can have a variable refresh rate, so therefore battery life will be significantly improved, because we are frequently looking at static images. And when we are looking at those static images, we don't need anything as high as 120, as high as 60. So we should be able to drop that even further because we are reading text. Why is it stopping at 60? I don't know. I feel like that's broke. The other thing is that because it's Apple, they don't include a way for the user to just say, hey, let me look to see what my refresh rate is right now. Here on my Galaxy, on my Zenfone 11, and just in Android in general, just in general settings, there are ways to change the refresh rate to dynamic or keep it at 60. Or I think with this one, I can keep it locked at 120. And even then, you're just like, well, I know I'm clicking on a setting, but is that really what it is? So then you do have to go into developer options, which takes, 3 steps or whatever. But then, you can tell the phone to display the refresh rate. So that way, how quickly the screen is refreshing it. And that's just built into the operating system versus having to go and download a third-party app. And that's by design on Apple's part, that they call it ProMotion. But what does ProMotion actually mean? They can change that definition every single day of the week. Because, as I said just a few moments ago, I thought it was, yes, up to 120, but down to something lower than 60. Here, we are seeing that is stuck at 60. So clearly ProMotion has a definition that changes probably monthly, whatever. But again, let's get back to what he has to say.
Test this in X and also Facebook, but then some people are telling me, hey, you know what? Now this is not good. You should have tested it in Facebook, in Gallery, and there are so many apps, also Instagram, Safari, and Photos, and the iPhone's displays are just throttling at 80 Hertz. I'm mainly an Android user, so I'm used to 120 Hertz. And the thing is, for me, this might be a problem. Now, when I'm using the iPhone, I don't really notice this. But the thing is, it's a problem for us, the users, because for Apple, it seems that they really seems to not care, releasing the 60 refresh rate also on the latest iPhone 16 that are not Pro. But in this video, guys, I just wanted to show one more time all these apps that you were saying that I did not test, just to show you what these apps show there. And the only reason why I decided to use CPU X was because some people use this exact same app and they got 80 Hertz. The first thing I want to show is the gallery. So when I'm inside the gallery, it's 60 Hertz, and when I just slightly touch it, it will reach 120. But then the issue is when you just scroll like crazy, it's indeed 80 Hertz. So
okay, and I think that's enough of his video. And before I made the video, I think I was going to, scold Apple would be the appropriate term. But then I realized, you know what? This is actually kind of smart. And that's mainly because even though the YouTubers of yesterday and the media as a whole were like, ProMotion, scrolling is so smooth, 120 Hertz, it's significantly better. And I said it back then. Who the fuck cares? If you're scrolling that fast, you're clearly not actually consuming whatever content is on the screen. So why does it need to be that fast? Doesn't make any sense. I do actually think this is a smart implementation, that if you're slowly scrolling, yes, it bumps up to 120, but the moment that you quickly scroll, it jolts down to 80. And that theoretically should help with battery life. So yeah, originally, before I started recording, I had made a note to say, yo, Apple's scamming, blah, 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 blah. But no, actually, I think that's smart. I do also think it'd be nice if Apple included a way for the average user to say, oh, let me just either, let me make the decision of how I want this screen to operate, which we know Apple won't do that. Or, hey, let the user natively be able to display what the active refresh rate is on the screen. But Apple may not do that. I don't know. So yeah, I think I'm good right there. ProMotion is what Apple wants it to be today, and that's it. Scrolling fast, who really cares? I think we should be concerned about, if I'm watching content, I want it to display at a high refresh rate, and I think a lot of people missed that point years ago when ProMotion was first created, announced, whatever. We've been talking about the phone this whole time, but I'm using a MacBook Pro right here. I'm sure there's an app I could download to be able to determine what the refresh rate is right now. Maybe I will one of these days. But yeah, static image, it should be lower than 60. And that was a problem, or I think is a problem that I wasn't thinking about before I started recording the video. But it's, 80 hertz is actually smart if you're scrolling. But wait a minute, if it's static images or a static screen, why isn't it going down beneath 60? So one thing I thought was a problem is actually pretty good. And one thing I wasn't even thinking about, I think is a problem. So I think that's not good.